he didn't play chess. He didn't play games with the military. When he put them in, and he supported them, and he said, "This is what we're going to do, and we are going to see to it that they have the support that they need." To me, it symbolizes a lot that we now have this on the record, and this is an insider that has the relationship and position, and was in the place to know what was said. For all the reasons that Guy said in the last segment, I think you can understand that this has to be considered a credible account of these things, because it's been released. The book has been released in probably the least political possible way that this information could have been put out there. But it does confirm a lot of hunches that people like me had for a long time. 888-589-8840, 888-589-8840. Some of you want to weigh in on this. Let's talk to Mark in Virginia. Hi, Mark. Welcome. You're on with Kevin McCullough. So glad you're here.
Yeah, hi, Kevin.
Mark, are you there?
Take my call. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Go right ahead.
Yes. Well, I believe in everything you're saying, and I find it hard to believe that anyone can lead a country and not have some backbone on how to lead troops. This all over the media. There's so many dynamics involved with all these topics and what's going on in our country, but this war has just been on the back burner, and it just really hurts me that our president and our leaders never talk about this war, and also that going on the history of the Russians being over there for so long, and there's no way out of this thing. It's going to implode on itself, and I just don't know what our leaders are going to do about it.
Well, we've announced to the world that we're going to be vacating by a certain date, and we will. I mean, we're gonna, what bothers me about that is that we're seeing what that has brought about in Iraq. We announced when we were going to be gone. We're more or less gone. Now Al-Qaeda has said, okay, now that they're gone, we're going to move in and take over the Anbar province and so forth. I think Afghanistan has the potential to revert to the same thing. Largely because that's where Al-Qaeda was before, and largely because the ethnic tribes that are in the outer lying areas, they don't really have a clear understanding of what loyalties to, Al-Qaeda versus the Taliban versus the Afghan government, any of it means. They kind of live in insulated communities where they're going to do what they want to do. The problem is not letting it become a hotbed for largely outsiders. All of the Al Qaeda guys were, or the 9/11 guys were all Egyptian and Saudi, but not having a training camp for these guys. But I want to go back to something else that was revealed in the book, and that is that according to what Guy Benson told us in the last segment, and that is that there's an element of suspicion that the current administration views the elder leadership of the military with. That is a fascinating observation to me. Let me ask you this question. Why do you believe the commander-in-chief, who's been democratically elected twice, why do you believe that there would be an element of suspicion as to how he views the leaders and the leadership of the United States military? What is that about? Where does that come from? Why would the military has been with us from George Washington through President Obama. They have served Democrats, they have served Republicans. I've never heard the charge made before, especially by a cabinet member, which is in essence what you have here. You have Secretary of Defense, former Secretary of Defense, that said in the White House, particularly amongst people like Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama, there was an element of suspicion with which they viewed the military. Why? Why would those two people in particular? Why would people from their worldview? What is it about the United States military that needed to be viewed as suspicious by the then incoming commander-in-chief and the then ruling commander-in-chief? Why would that even be a concern? If everything is chain of command, and in the military it is, why would there be even a need for President Obama to have an ounce of suspicion or view the elder leadership of our United States military branches with suspicion? Why would there be a need for him to do that? If you're in his mind and in his world and think the way he does, tell me what it is that caused him to be suspicious of his elder military leadership. 888-589-8840. We're talking about the biggest story out of Washington, D.C. in the last 24 hours, a explosive set of charges set about in a new book that's coming out by Secretary of Defense Robert Gates, former Secretary of Defense Robert Gates, saying that some nice things about President Obama and Secretary of State Clinton and some others, but also leveling some pretty serious charges on some of these matters, particularly in that he wasn't really committed to the Afghan war and that only showed opposition to the Iraq conflict because of the polling numbers that were being shown in 2007 and 8, and joking about that with Hillary Clinton in front of Secretary Gates on a couple of occasions. Let's go back to the phones, 888-589-8840. Let's start with Sharon calling from Arkansas. Hi, Sharon. Welcome. You're on with Kevin McCullough. So glad you're with us.
Hi, Kevin. Thank you so much for taking my call. I'm fascinated about this because I grew up as the child of a Marine, and I'm almost 60 years old, and I'm a former career military wife.
Okay.
And it really, really hurts me that somebody can be elected and be the commander-in-chief of the military that has no military background, no association with the military whatsoever. And I think that that's sort of putting people into a job description that they have no qualifications for to start with. But it was interesting what you were saying to this last caller. Possibly the reason why Hillary and President Obama felt that way is people always feel a little bit threatened and uneasy about people that they feel like know something better than they know it, especially when they're the ones that are supposed to be in charge. And you've got people in charge that really have no military background, have no history with it at all. They don't know really how the military runs and what's actually needed. And I can see them being suspicious of the people who are in charge that really have the knowledge, because that's going to make them look like they don't know what they're doing.
Well, and that's kind of interesting when you put it that way, Sharon. And I thank you for your call, and I thank you for your family and their service and your commitment to them through that service for our nation. I think it's kind of interesting from this standpoint. They viewed senior military leadership with suspicion, according to Secretary of Defense Gates. They view them with suspicion, and yet they also took the advice of senior military leadership less than almost any president that preceded them. And you can point to a number of policies in which they have done that. The insertion of women in active combat roles, the insertion of the tearing down of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, a number of other things in which they would ask the senior military leadership, what do you think of this? They would all come to a consensus, give them their opinion, and the president would do the exact opposite. Once you've done that a couple of times, maybe the senior military leadership should be looking at the commander-in-chief with more suspicion, because it doesn't seem like he's really up for wanting to know anything that they actually thought. But it is bizarre that the one commander-in-chief that we know this about, that's been revealed publicly, that views his senior military leadership with suspicion, is also the guy that resolutely rejects more of their consensus than past presidents. And that's an astounding kind of A-B comparison there. I'm thinking that they're kind of related, don't you? 888-589-8840, 888-589-8840. Let's go to, okay, we'll go to break then. By the way, what is the true solution for America in 2014? What is the true solution for America in 2014? If you have not done it yet, join our army, praying for our nation, praying for one another, praying for our homes and our families. Pray2014.com is how you do that. Pray2014.com. It's a new prayer focus that we're releasing weekly on Mondays. This week's prayer focus, very simply, is that we would trust, we would be able to, that God would give us the amount of trust to acknowledge His provision completely for our lives, that we would trust Him on that level. That's what we're praying that God will grow in us this week. If you're praying through the Pray 2014 prayer focus with us, and you can sign up for it and get it at no cost and no charge. Just hit your inbox every Monday with it at pray2014.com. I'm Kevin McCullough. Glad you're with us. This is AFA Today on AFR Talk. Lots more of your calls when we continue.